You have been told in 100 different ways that worrying means you care. That the person who lies awake running through every possible way something could go wrong is being responsible. That the mind that constantly scans the horizon for threats is being realistic. That the tension you carry is the price of taking your life seriously. But here is the truth nobody says out loud. Worry has never solved a single problem. Not one. In the entire history of human anxiety, not a single outcome was improved by the hours spent dreading it. Not a single failure was prevented by the nights spent imagining it. Not a single good thing arrived faster because someone worried their way toward it. What worry does is this. It drains the exact energy you need to actually deal with what you are afraid of. It consumes the clarity required to find solutions. It burns the fuel you would need to take the action that would actually make a difference. And the cruelest part is that it does all of this while feeling productive, while feeling like responsibility, while masquerading as care. You're not being careful when you worry. You're being drained. And today we're going to talk about how to stop. There is one question that cuts through almost every anxiety with surgical precision. Does this have a solution? That is it. That is the entire first step. Not a complex analysis, not a meditation practice, not years of therapy. One honest question. Does this have a solution? If the answer is yes, then the only rational response is to act, not to think more about it, not to prepare emotionally for how bad it might get. To act. Make the call, have the conversation, adjust the plan, take the next step. Because any worry that has a solution dissolves the moment you move toward that solution. It cannot survive action. It only survives in the space where action is being avoided. And if the answer is no, if what you're worried about is genuinely outside your control, then worrying about it is not responsibility. It is self-punishment. It is voluntarily making yourself miserable about something that your misery cannot change. Most people resist this distinction. They feel that if they stop worrying about something they cannot control, they're giving up. That the worry itself is a form of engagement, of caring, of keeping the problem alive in their awareness so they can somehow influence it. But you cannot think your way into control over things that were never yours to control. You can only think yourself into exhaustion trying. The question, does this have a solution, is not a technique for indifference. It is a tool for precision. It directs your energy toward what can actually receive it and releases you from what cannot. That release is not weakness. It is the most intelligent thing you can do with a finite supply of energy in a world that will always present more uncertainty than any mind can manage. Now let's go deeper. Because the surface of the worry is rarely where the problem actually lives. You think you're worried about being late, but underneath that is the fear of being judged as unreliable. You think you are worried about making a mistake, but underneath that is the fear of being seen as incompetent, as someone who does not have what it takes. You think you are worried about money, but underneath that is the fear of being the kind of person whose life did not work out, of confirming something you have always been afraid might be true about you. The surface content of the worry is almost never the real issue. The real issue is what the worst-case scenario would mean about who you are. And this matters enormously, because as long as you're trying to solve the surface worry, the deeper fear keeps generating new material. You resolve one concern and another takes its place, wearing a different face but carrying the same charge. Because the fuel source was never the specific problem. It was the underlying belief about yourself that the problem threatened to confirm. When you finally turn toward that deeper layer, when you ask yourself not what could go wrong, but what does my fear of that reveal about what I believe about myself, something shifts. Not immediately, not without discomfort, but something becomes visible that you could not see before. And what is visible can be worked with. What is named can be addressed. What is hidden in the noise of surface anxiety keeps running the show indefinitely. Take an honest look at the worry you carry most consistently. Beneath it, what does the worst-case scenario say about you? What verdict is your mind afraid of receiving? That you are not capable, not worthy, not enough, not the person you wanted to be. Those beliefs, not the external circumstances, are the actual source of most chronic anxiety. And they are beliefs, not facts, which means they can be questioned, examined, and changed. Here's something that sounds simple, but changes everything when you really take it in. Worry does not live in the present. It cannot. The present moment, the one you are actually in right now, is almost always manageable. Right now, in this exact moment, you are likely safe, breathing, intact. The disasters your mind is rehearsing have not happened yet. The judgments you are dreading have not been delivered. The failures you are anticipating are still hypothetical. Worry lives entirely in a projected future, in a version of events that exists nowhere but in your own imagination. In your nervous system, which does not distinguish between a real threat and a vividly imagined one, responds to that imaginary future with all the physical stress of something actually happening. You are experiencing the emotional and physical cost of events that have not occurred and may never occur. Think about how much of your mental life has been spent in that imaginary future. The conversation that went wrong 100 times in your mind before it ever happened, and then happened completely differently. The catastrophe you spent weeks bracing for that never materialized. The disaster that you had already grieved before the outcome was even known. All of that suffering was real. The energy spent, the sleep lost, the joy contaminated by dread. It was all real, and all of it was spent on something that did not exist. The antidote to this is not to stop caring about the future. It is to return to the present again and again as a deliberate practice. To notice when your mind has traveled forward into hypothetical disaster and bring it back to what is actually happening right now. What can you see right now? What can you hear? What is actually present in this moment that your mind has been ignoring while it runs its worst-case scenarios? The present is where your power is. It is the only place where action is possible, where decisions can be made, where something can actually be changed. The future is where worry lives, and worry, by definition, cannot do anything useful there. Come back to now, not as a spiritual practice, as a practical strategy for recovering the energy your anxiety has been stealing. Let's talk about control, because this is where most people lose enormous amounts of life. There's a boundary that most people have never clearly drawn for themselves. The boundary between what they can influence and what they cannot. And without that boundary, their energy bleeds in every direction, spin on things that were never available to be changed, while the things that actually are within their reach go unaddressed. You cannot control what other people think of you. You cannot control whether your efforts produce the results you hoped for on the timeline you wanted. You cannot control the economy, the weather, the decisions of others, the arbitrary factors that favor some efforts and complicate others. What you can control is your response, your attitude, the quality of the effort you bring, the decisions you make from where you are with what you have right now. That is it. That is the full extent of your actual influence. And here's the thing that most people discover when they genuinely accept this. It is enough, not in a resigned, giving up kind of way, in a genuinely liberating way. Because when you stop spending energy trying to manage what was never yours to manage, you have an enormous amount more of it available for what actually is. The person who has drawn that boundary clearly moves through the world differently. They do not carry the weight of outcomes they cannot determine. They are not exhausted by the effort of trying to control what cannot be controlled. They bring full focus and full energy to what they can affect, and they release everything else. Not with indifference, with precision. Try this today. Write down everything that is currently worrying you. Then draw a line down the page and sort each item into 2 columns. What I can actually do something about. What I cannot. For the first column, take one action on each item. Anything. A call, a message, a decision, a first step. Move toward it even slightly. For the second column, make a decision. A real one. To release it. Not to stop caring, but to stop spending your energy on something that your energy cannot change. Because every hour you spend worrying about the uncontrollable is an hour stolen from something that actually deserves your attention. Now let's talk about something that operates at a level most people never examine. The beliefs you are carrying about yourself and the world were mostly not chosen by you. They were absorbed from the environment you grew up in, from the things people said to you, especially the people whose opinions shaped your sense of what you were worth and what you were capable of, from the culture that surrounded you, with its particular ideas about what success looks like and what failure means and how much certainty you need before you can move forward. Many of those beliefs are running right now, underneath your conscious thoughts, generating anxiety without your awareness of where it's coming from. Beliefs like, if I make a mistake, it reflects on my fundamental worth as a person. If things go wrong, it means I'm not enough. If I cannot predict and control outcomes, I am being irresponsible. If someone is disappointed in me, something has gone seriously wrong. None of those beliefs are facts. Every one of them is a conclusion drawn from experience and then accepted without examination as the truth about how things work. And every one of them is a machine for generating worry. Because a mind that believes its worth depends on outcomes will be permanently anxious about outcomes. A mind that believes failure reflects on its fundamental value will be chronically afraid of failing. A mind that has accepted the idea that uncertainty is dangerous will spend enormous energy trying to eliminate uncertainty from a world that is fundamentally and permanently uncertain. The work of examining these beliefs is not quick or comfortable, but it is the most effective thing you can do about chronic worry because it addresses the source rather than the symptoms. When the belief changes, the anxiety that the belief was generating stops having fuel. Start small. The next time you feel significant anxiety, ask what belief is underneath this. What does this fear assume to be true about me or about how the world works? Is that assumption actually true? Where did it come from? Is it serving me? You did not choose the beliefs that are generating your worry, but you can choose whether to keep them. Let's talk about decisions. Because one of the most overlooked sources of chronic anxiety is the decision that has not been made. The mind in a state of indecision cannot rest. It keeps returning to the open question, circling it, examining it from every angle, running through scenarios, because there is an unresolved loop that cannot close until a choice is made. And most people, without realizing it, are carrying dozens of these open loops. Decisions that have been avoided because making the wrong choice feels worse than making no choice at all. Questions that have been deferred because the answer is unclear and the uncertainty is uncomfortable. But here is what that deferral costs. Every open decision is a background process running in your mind, consuming energy even when you're not consciously thinking about it. Every unresolved question is a low-grade source of anxiety that adds to the cumulative weight you are carrying without knowing exactly where the weight is coming from. And here's the thing that most people get backward about decisions. Clarity does not reliably come before the decision. It very often comes through it. You do not wait until you can see the full path before you take the first step. You take the first step, and the path becomes visible as you move. The person who waits for complete certainty before deciding will wait indefinitely, because complete certainty is almost never available in advance. And while they wait, the worry compounds. The indecision becomes its own source of stress, added to the original uncertainty. The more useful approach is to gather the information that is reasonably available, trust your own judgment and experience, and decide. Not because you are certain the decision is right, because making a decision and moving with it is almost always better than staying suspended between options indefinitely. A decision made closes the loop. It directs the energy that was being spent on the open question toward execution instead. And execution, however imperfect, produces information that informs the next decision in a way that continuing to deliberate never can. Look at the decisions you have been deferring, the ones that have been living in the back of your mind, unresolved for weeks or months. Ask yourself honestly, is there genuinely new information still coming that justifies waiting? Or have you been waiting because deciding feels risky and not deciding feels safe? And if it is the latter, decide. Not because the outcome is guaranteed, because the cost of not deciding is already being paid in the form of the anxiety that is consuming your mental energy right now. There's one more thing that feeds chronic worry that most people never think to examine. The environment you're living inside of every day. Not just the physical environment, the mental one, what you consume, what you listen to, whose voice you allow consistent access to your mind, the conversations you regularly participate in, the content that fills your hours. Your mind is porous. It absorbs what surrounds it. And if what surrounds it is a constant stream of threat, scarcity, conflict, and worst-case scenarios, your nervous system adapts to that as its normal operating temperature. Your baseline anxiety rises. Your default expectation becomes negative. And worry, which was already a habit, now has an entire environment reinforcing it. Most people do not notice this because the absorption happens gradually. You do not feel the shift happening. You only feel the accumulated result. A persistent low-grade tension that you cannot trace to any specific source. A heaviness that seems to arrive from nowhere. A mind that keeps returning to dark scenarios even when there is nothing in your immediate life to justify it. And when you look at what has been feeding that mind consistently, you often find the answer. This is not an argument for disconnecting from the world or pretending that difficulty does not exist. It is an argument for being deliberate about what you allow repeated access to your attention. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own. It shapes what you notice, what you expect, what you believe is normal, what you think is possible. And you are giving it hours every day to sources that were designed not to inform you, but to capture you. To keep you engaged through the most reliable mechanism available. Fear. Not all of it is malicious, but the effect is the same. A mind that has been consuming anxiety-producing content for hours every day is not going to naturally arrive at calm and clarity. It is going to arrive at more anxiety. Begin to audit what you are feeding your mind, not with judgment, with honest curiosity. What consistently raises your anxiety without improving your situation? What voices, what platforms, what conversations leave you feeling more depleted and less capable than before you encountered them? And then begin, gradually and deliberately, to replace some of that with what moves in the other direction. Not with forced positivity, with genuine nourishment. The things that remind you of your own capability, that expand your sense of what is possible, that orient your mind toward action rather than dread. The environment you build around your mind is not separate from the quality of your thoughts. It is the soil those thoughts grow from. And if you want different thoughts, you need, at least partly, different soil. Before this video ends, I want to ask you something directly. How much of your life has been spent worrying about things that never happened? Not as a rhetorical question, as a genuine invitation to look back and do the accounting. The argument with someone that you rehearsed for days and then never had. The failure you braced yourself for that did not materialize. The judgment you were certain was coming that either never came or was far less significant than you feared. The catastrophe that consumed your imagination for weeks and then resolved itself or turned out to be manageable or simply did not arrive. How much time? How much energy? How many nights? How much joy was contaminated by dread that turned out to be unnecessary? That accounting is not meant to produce shame. It is meant to produce clarity. Because the mind that has done that accounting honestly has real evidence drawn from its own history that its anxieties are almost never as accurate as they feel. That the worst case scenarios it generates so convincingly are rarely the ones that materialize. That it has survived everything it was certain it would not survive. That evidence is more powerful than any technique for managing worry. Because it comes from your own life. It is not someone else's theory about how anxiety works. It is the lived record of your own resilience. Worry is a habit. It feels like protection. It feels like care. It feels like responsibility. But it is none of those things. It is a pattern of thought that was established at some point because uncertainty felt dangerous, and that has been running on autopilot ever since, draining your energy, stealing your present, and producing nothing of value. You can change that pattern, not overnight, not without effort, but one question at a time, one decision at a time, one return to the present moment at a time. Does this have a solution? If yes, act. If no, release. What is actually in my control right now? Direct all energy there. Release the rest. What belief is underneath this worry? Is it actually true? What decision am I avoiding? Make it. Where's my attention? Bring it back to now. These are not complex practices. They are not dramatic interventions. They are small, repeated redirections of a mind that has learned to default to worry, being trained gradually and consistently towards something more useful, toward the present, toward what you can actually do, toward the life that is happening right now. While the part of you that worries is somewhere else, in a future that does not exist yet, paying a price that has not been earned. Come back. This is where your life is. This is where your power is. And this is where everything that is actually available to you can be found. If this video moved something in you, if something you heard today made you stop and think, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to explore together. See you in the next one.